Okay, okay. It's all right now.
Okay, Ambassador. Okay, no problem. Talk to you later.
Hello? No, not you, not you. I'm here.
Okay.
Hello, Ambassador.
Yes.
We are all online now and waiting for you.
Okay, I'm here. I'm here actually. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, Ambassador.
Good afternoon.
Yes. I hereby formally and officially welcome you to yet another virtual meeting, this time organized by the youth on silencing the guns. I must emphasize that this particular program is being organized by the PSD in collaboration with the Office of the Youth Envoy and the Department of Human Resources, Science and Technology. And the theme for today's discussion is high-level panel on advancing youth roles and capacities to silence the guns in Africa. As you all agree with me that youth constitute a significant proportion of the population of Africa. Although they are highly regarded as the future leaders of tomorrow, the African Union has always made it an imperative to incorporate the perspective, youth perspective in its programs, functions, and events. This high-level panel is designed to discuss how to advance the roles and capacities of youth in silencing the guns in Africa. With this short introduction, we have 1 hour to discuss this program. As we have another meeting, a PSC meeting. In this regard, I will introduce our speakers for today's program. The first speaker will be His Excellency Ambassador Ismail Shergi, Commissioner for Peace and Security, who will give the keynote address and officially launch the campaign. And then, yes, and then he will be followed by statements delivered by His Excellency Professor Sarah Agbo, Commissioner for Human Resources, Science and Technology, and then followed by HE Ambassador Mineta Sisuma, who is the Commissioner for Political Affairs, and then followed by HE Ambassador Edward Makaya, the Chair of the AU Permanent Representative Committee and South African Ambassador to Ethiopia and the African Union. And then he will be followed by HE Ambassador Joel Nkurabagaya, Chair of the Peace and Security Council of the African Union. And then he will be followed by Ms. Anna Tete, who is the UN Special Representative of the Secretary General and head of the UN Office to the African Union. And then we have now our Youth Envoy, who will be the next speaker, Ms. Aya Chebi, AU Youth Envoy. And then she will be followed by the Youth Ambassador, Ms. Emma Nganga, who is the Ambassador for Youth in the East African region. Without much ado, I will now call upon His Excellency Ambassador Ismail Shergi, Commissioner for Political Affairs of the Commissioner for Peace and Security of the African Union, to give the keynote address and officially launch the campaign. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much indeed, dear Ambassador, and the Director of Ceremony for today. I want to welcome my fellow commissioners, my sisters, and also all the distinguished panelists, and indeed Mrs. Aya, the African Union Youth Envoy, and also the envoy, the woman envoy on the youth envoy on the East Africa of our continent, and all those who are choosing to follow us today. I want to thank them for giving us this opportunity to address our daughters and sons across the continent. I'm elated to deliver this address to officially launch the campaign for the mobilization and support for African young women and men towards silencing the guns in Africa and to advance peace efforts on the continent. Indeed, the Commission, through the Peace and Security Department, Youth for Peace Africa program primarily has been working relentlessly to promote youth participation in peace and security in line with the decision of the Africa Union Assembly of Heads of State and Government, as well as the Peace and Security Council. These includes implementation of Article 17 of the Africa Youth Charter and UN Security Council Resolution 2250 and 2419. Institutionalization of the Youth for Peace program in the PSD, dedication of an annual PSC open session on youth, peace and security, Youth for Peace, appointment of 5 regional African youth ambassadors for peace, and most recently, the PSC's adoption of the continental framework of Youth for Peace and endorsement of study on the roles and contributions of youth to peace and security in Africa. In adopting Silencing the Guns, creating conducive environment for Africa's development as the theme of the year 2020, the African Union policy organs intended to emphasize the nexus between peace and development. The theme coincides with the deadline set by the Assembly of the Union in its solemn declaration, adopted on the occasion of the celebration of the 50th anniversary of OAU Africa Union, to rid the continent of wars, civil conflicts, human rights violations, humanitarian disasters and violent conflict, and to prevent genocide. I think for our technicians, the one who is speaking should be on the screen. All the speakers should be on the screen. Any speaker who takes the floor should be on the main screen. Therefore, in landmark, as it sets out the necessary conditions for creating a conducive environment to move forward Africa's development agenda, Africa's citizens and communities, in particular youth, have raised expectations regarding the fulfillment of the objectives of the year 2020. Distinguished colleagues and panelists, my daughters and sons across the continent, whereas several factors and stakeholders instigate and sustain violence, the youth are often perceived as the harbingers of violence. One of the core objectives of the Youth for Peace Africa program is to debunk the negative stereotyping of young Africans while showcasing their positive contribution and for fostering partnership with them as agents of social change, cohesion, peace, and development. Silencing the Guns is not just about the physical weapons, but also about exclusion, marginalization, poverty, and unemployment, among others, as captured in the Africa Union Master Roadmap for Silencing the Guns. In this context, the Peace and Security Department, in collaboration with the Rex RMs, shall be supporting 5 regional projects to be implemented by the Africa Youth Ambassadors for Peace. We have strongly encouraged the youth ambassadors to peace to broadly engage the youth in their regions in the development and implementation of these projects to foster ownership, but most importantly, respond to the peace and security challenges in the region. In contemporary times, the youth, peace and security agenda has gained continental and global momentum occasioned by the PSC's adoption of the Continental Youth for Peace Framework and its 10-year implementation plan, endorsement of the study on the roles and contribution of youth to peace and security in Africa, as well as the UN Security Council adoption of Resolution 2535. The Continental Framework, which was jointly developed with the Rex RM and Youth, provides the normative guidance to all relevant stakeholders for the non-tokenistic mainstreaming and consequential inclusion of youth in all spheres of peace building across 5 priorities of participation, prevention, protection, partnership, and coordination, as well as disengagement and reintegration. It envisions the mainstreaming of cross-cutting issues, including gender capacity building, inclusivity, communication, and knowledge management. Also, the UN Security Council Resolution 2535 reiterates the clarion call to member states to increase inclusive representation of youth in peace building as well as promote their protection. Similarly, the UN Security Council Resolution 2457, supporting the Africa Union's vision to silence the guns in Africa, also encourages all those involved in the planning for disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration to consider the needs of youth affected by armed conflicts, including the problem of youth in employment in the continent, by investing in building young persons' capabilities and skills to meet labor demands through relevant education opportunities designated in a manner which promote a culture of peace. Distinguished colleagues and panelists, my daughters and son across the continent, Africa, the continental study rather, captures the immense contribution of youth to peace and security, including in prevention, mediation and resolution of conflict, governance and electioning process, preventing radicalization and violent extremism, climate change, gender equality, etc. In the coming weeks, the Africa Union REX-RMs shall be organizing a series of webinars to disseminate and popularize the content of the framework and the findings of the study. I urge all to read and familiarize yourselves with the Continental Youth for Peace framework in order to drive its domestication and implementation. The youth, as primary implementers and beneficiary of the Youth for Peace agenda, must take advantage of the continental and global momentum and to the leading edge of the constantly evolving youth sector in general, and particularly in peace and security. You need to take note of norms and institutional arrangements which are fast evolving and find innovative ways to adapt them to your situations. My daughters and son, I reiterate my commitment and that of my team to ensure your meaningful participation by creating conducive platforms to utilize your enormous energy and capacities for the promotion of peace and stability in Africa within the framework of Africa Union Master Roadmap on silencing the guns. We shall continue to do this through diverse existing platforms, such as capacity building, including training, mentorship, and intergenerational dialogues, as well as utilize the regional and continental network of youth peace builder to facilitate regular engagement between the Africa Union REX, RMs, and youth experiences, sharing and peer learning. I wish to underscore that silencing the guns will be a mirage without the effective inclusion, meaningful engagement and contribution of youth, the most potent population on the continent. Once again, I reiterate my determination and dedication to create and enable safe space for youth strategic engagement and contribution as we strive collectively to rid the continent of conflict and foster its sustainable development. I look forward to engage with you all to achieve the goal of conflict-free Africa. I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Excellency, for your brief but excellent statement highlighting some of the policy frameworks on the youth agenda crafted by the AU as well as the UN Security Councils. And of course, the platform that you've created for the involvement of youth on various aspects of conflict prevention and mediation mechanisms. I thank you for your statement. I now give the floor to Her Excellency Professor Sarah Agbo, Commissioner for Human Resources, Science and Technology. Your Excellency, you have the floor and you have 7 minutes to deliver the statement.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I want to recognize the presence of all excellencies on the board, particularly my brother, His Excellency, Commissioner Shegi, who have just spoken, my sister, Her Excellency Minata Sesuma, and of course, the chair of the PRC, who is here present with us, His Excellency Ambassador Edward Makaya, and my brother, His Excellency Joel Inkuru Bagaya, and my sister, Her Excellency Anna Tete, and of course, my daughter, Ms. Aya Shebi, the African Union Youth Envoy, and all distinguished participants here present in this meeting. It is my immense pleasure to join you all today for the launch of the Youth Silencing the Guns campaign. I wish to recognize the presence of all other youths have not been able to mention, but who are also part of this. Youth Silencing the Guns campaign. It is a very important theme and a very important move, because if we need to silence the guns, then the youth of Africa, who are demographic dividend, should be able to be at the forefront leading these. And they should be in the process of co-creation and on the platform and all the spaces that we speak about silencing the guns. I want to begin by warmly commending the worthy efforts of the Office of the African Union Youth Envoy, the African Union Departments of Peace and Security, Political Affairs, and Human Resources, Science and Technology for putting together this necessary campaign for our youth to advance the African Union's theme of 2020, silencing the guns, creating conducive conditions for Africa's development. In 2019, the chairperson of the African Union Commission launched the 1 Million by 2021 initiative to give opportunities to young people in the areas of education, employment, engagement, and entrepreneurship. We are very much aware that achieving this goal is dependent on the peace, security, and stability of the environment which young people live, work, and play in. Without this peace and security, our efforts to provide opportunities is like pouring water in a basket. I also need to stress that this ecosystem is symbiotic. Symbiotic in the sense that if we give young people access to good education, gainful employment, good health and well-being, and the platforms for tangible civic and social engagement, this will drastically reduce the risks of them taking up arms and other harmful practices which unravel the very fabric of our society. The commitment, therefore, is based on the principle that no one should be left behind, with a strong focus on inclusion across the whole peace process and education spectrum. Unfortunately, we see that the poor and most marginalized parents and children are often unable to make their voices heard, to exercise their rights, and to play an active part in society. In addition to the numerous challenges plaguing inclusion in education, inclusion in peace process, you will agree that the COVID-19 has further deepened the problem of exclusion. Silencing the guns means quality education for the youth of Africa. Silencing the guns means zero hunger for the youth of Africa. Silencing the guns means good infrastructure and empowerment of the youth of Africa. If we are able to do that, we can be able to silence the guns. And because of this engagement with tangible civic and social engagement that we say would drastically reduce the risks of them taking up arms and other harmful practices, we need to walk the talk and go beyond rhetoric. This is at the heart of a robust youth agenda engagement to underscore the silencing the guns agenda. Young people are leaders. Young people are partners. Young people are beneficiaries in any aspect of development, and the peace and security of our continent is no exception. I fully expect our youth to be at the forefront of advocacy and action to secure Africa's peace and security, as well as access to opportunities for the future of our continent. With silencing the guns, we silence unemployment, we silence illiteracy, We silence harsh business environments for our young people. We silence youth apathy, and we give voices to young Africans across this continent to meaningfully contribute to their own development. This is our vision for a prosperous, integrated, peaceful Africa as outlined by our Agenda 2063. I am gratified to see the willingness and sense of responsibility in young Africans to contribute to achieving this noble goal. The COVID-19 pandemic has showed us that for any progress in this world, we need to embrace collective responsibility and mutual accountability in the spirit of Ubuntu. I am because you are. We are only as safe and as strong as the will of our neighbors to protect our public interests. I am therefore keen to see you all engage in the trainings and activities set out within this campaign, and I enjoin you to work towards tangible outcomes you can take pride in. Let us strive to answer this at the end of our efforts. How have we advanced sustainable peace and security in Africa? We have had so many conversations this year on what needs to be done, and I urge us to move into action. It is my fervent hope that this campaign achieves the objectives it sets out to do, and it fosters the ownership of Africa's development on our youth. I agree with you, my brother, Commissioner Shaggy, that the youth are often considered as the hamburger of strikes and dissents, but they can also bring about the peace if we, as policymakers, do our duty and ensure that we capacitate the youth of Africa in the manner of co-creation and peace for all. Yes, silencing the guns is beyond the absence of physical war. Silencing the guns will be realized when the African dream is put in place. It will be realized when the youth and women are brought in a process of co-creation, empowered with skills and given space in the governance of this great continent. A hungry man is an angry man, we do say. So this silencing the guns will be a mirage if we do not walk the talk and go beyond rhetorics to doing the needful for a conflict-free Africa, as Ambassador Shaggy and Commissioner Shaggy have stated. Once again, thank you for your presence and engagement here, and I wish you all a very fruitful deliberations. Thank you. Amaseginalo.
Thank you, Commissioner, for your brief statement. Brief, but it underscores the symbiotic relationship between the youth and the African Union in utilizing whatever enabling environment, irrespective of the COVID-19, to enhance their progress in education and various aspects of capacity building for them to prepare for them for the future. I thank you. It's a very, 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 very strong statement, and which I believe the youth will appreciate. I thank you for that statement. I now give the floor to our next speaker, Her Excellency Ambassador Minata Sisuma, who is our Commissioner for Political Affairs. Your Excellency, you have the floor, and you should take the floor for 7 minutes. You have the floor, Excellency.
Merci beaucoup, Ambassadeur Camara, cher frère Chergui, commissaire Sarah, Ambassadeur Makaya, Madame Tété Ayachebi, distinguées personnalités, mesdames et messieurs, tout protocole dûment respecté. C'est un honneur et un plaisir pour nous d'être avec vous cet après-midi et surtout féliciter les organisateurs de la plateforme de ce soir sur cette importante question, ce projet phare de l'Union africaine sur la nécessité de faire taire les armes sur le continent afin de créer les conditions pour un développement. Le commissaire Chergui et Madame Sarah Anyang, les deux commissaires ont beaucoup élaboré sur la question des conflits qui demeurent justement une cause profonde qui nous empêche d'atteindre le développement et d'avoir une bonne gouvernance sur le continent africain. C'est de dire aussi le lien entre paix, sécurité, stabilité et développement et surtout aussi la bonne gouvernance. Les conflits nous empêchent d'atteindre les objectifs de l'agenda 2063 et également de l'agenda 2030 des Nations Unies. Pour faire taire les armes, il est essentiel d'avoir cette corrélation entre certains aspects, dont faire taire les armes et nécessite aussi de mettre l'accent sur la prévention des conflits, la résolution des conflits et surtout l'après-conflit. Qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire, le post-conflit avec la reconstruction, la paix et la réconciliation. Il est important d'investir justement dans tous ces aspects si nous voulons faire taire les armes. Et cela ne pourra se faire sans la collaboration et l'implication des jeunes dans tous ces processus. Comme je le dis, ce sont j'ai l'habitude de dire que les questions de paix et sécurité, prévention, de gouvernance démocratique, ce sont des faces d'une même pièce. Il faut mettre l'accent sur toutes ces questions si nous voulons un développement économique qui soit harmonieux avec la paix, la sécurité et la stabilité. Ce qui nous réunit ce soir, c'est l'implication des jeunes dans ce projet phare. Parce qu'on l'a souvent dit et on a eu une année pour réfléchir sur cette question. Nous avons une population très jeune. Si on va entre les plus jeunes jusqu'à l'âge de 40 ans, nous avons plus de 70% de la population. Il est indispensable justement de les mettre à profit. Et c'est à justice justement que l'agenda 2063 met l'accent aussi sur la créativité, l'énergie et l'innovation de la jeunesse africaine qui sont le moteur même de la transformation politique, sociale et économique du continent africain. Le potentiel des jeunes est très, très important pour l'avenir de notre continent, un continent que nous voulons vraiment paisible, un continent que nous voulons développer. Et compte tenu de cela, justement, le département des affaires politiques a lancé une stratégie concernant les jeunes avec AGA et une stratégie dans le cadre d'une plateforme. Cette stratégie, au terme de laquelle nous avons invité les jeunes leaders et les partenaires et les bénéficiaires à s'impliquer justement dans les questions de paix et de sécurité. C'est un projet qui est important pour AGA et c'est une initiative qui a été lancée par le secrétariat de AGA, appelant justement les jeunes à l'action pour l'innovation, les défis, surtout aider à lever et relever les défis de la démocratie, de la gouvernance, des questions des droits de l'homme et toutes les questions politiques sur le continent africain. Nous sommes en train de travailler actuellement à identifier et à reconnaître ces jeunes à travers le continent pour travailler, pour nous permettre d'atteindre l'objectif que nous sommes fixés. Nous invitons les jeunes, je vois il y a beaucoup de jeunes qui sont avec nous, à appliquer sur le site de l'Union africaine. Il y avait un délai qui était le 28 juillet. Nous avons étendu ce délai jusqu'au 11 août pour permettre à ces jeunes d'apporter justement leur contribution. Et c'est la manière à nous aussi, en tant que département, d'amener les jeunes à s'impliquer dans ces questions de prévention des conflits pour nous permettre de ne plus avoir des armes sur le continent. Je voudrais saisir cette occasion pour féliciter le commissaire Chergui et ses collaborateurs et Madame Sarah qui travaille beaucoup avec les jeunes pour les impliquer vraiment dans ce thème et d'où la nécessité de travailler ensemble pour atteindre les objectifs. Et je vous félicite vraiment, mon frère et ma soeur, pour cette importante implication au niveau des jeunes. Je peux vous rassurer que le département travaillera avec vous et avec les jeunes et je salue mademoiselle Aya Chabi pour son engagement pour justement l'implication des jeunes dans tous les secteurs, y compris au niveau du département des affaires politiques. Nous restons disponibles, nous restons à l'écoute pour les conclusions de cette plateforme pour aussi permettre de mettre en œuvre et d'impliquer les jeunes dans la prévention et en termes de gouvernance politique sur le continent africain. Et merci beaucoup et je demande à chacun de, comme disent les Anglais, stay safe and stay healthy et que Dieu nous protège tous de cette difficile maladie et de cette difficulté que nous avons sur le continent maintenant. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur l'ambassadeur Camara. Merci de m'avoir donné la parole et félicitations pour cette plateforme.
Thank you, Excellency, for your statement. I'm sure we have brief statement, but very clear message from our commissioner, especially underscoring the correlation and nexus between conflict prevention, post-conflict peace building, that will be utilized to create a conducive environment for democratic governance. In all this, you emphasize the contribution of youth in order to accomplish this objective. I thank you very much for your very excellent statement. Excellent statement. I now give the floor to His Excellency Ambassador Edward Makaya, the chair of the AU Permanent Representative Committee and South African Ambassador to Ethiopia and African Union. Excellency, you have 5 minutes. We are running against time. We have like 30 more minutes for the next Peace and Security Council meeting. You have the floor, Excellency.
Thank you very much, Program Director, Ambassador Kamara, Your Excellency, Ambassador Shegi, Commissioner for Peace and Security, and all my dear sisters that are here, the commissioners. Of course, we also recognize our dear sister, Excellency, Ambassador, and Special Representative of the UN Secretary General, Excellency Hannah Turner, the Youth Envoy, our dear sister, Aya, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is a singular honor and privilege for us as the chair of the PRC to be invited to this important event, the launch of the Youth Silencing the Guns campaign. All the previous speakers have correctly captured the important role that the youth of Africa play and continue to play in the advancement of peace and security in our beloved continent. They have covered all the legal instruments in this regard. As the future belongs to the youth, it's important, therefore, that at all times we strive to entrench youth participation in the implementation of the AU objectives. Indeed, as the PRC, we are not unaware of the youth matters and program. The PRC had an opportunity to interact with my dear sister here, Aya, in November last year. A briefing that touched on the state of youth on the continent, the envoy's grand plan for 2019-2020. We have therefore been following with keen interest and a sense of pride of the developments in the youth, peace and security agenda in Africa. The recent PRC endorsement of the study on the roles and contribution by the youth on peace and security in Africa, as well as the adoption of the continental framework on youth in peace and security, are clear indications that the youth is an integral part to the Union's effort to end all forms of violence, promote sustainable peace and development on the continent. It bears noting, therefore, that the framework has a 10-year implementation plan. And as member states of the Union, we fully support that. It is, however, the responsibility of each and every member state of the Union to ensure that our youth is fully integrated into all the peacekeeping efforts and peace-building efforts. It's also critical that there be safe spaces for the youth in conflict situations, particularly young refugees and displaced persons. Youth, therefore, has to have a priority in post-conflict reconstruction and development and nation building in any country emerging from conflict. And that would help us to move towards socio-economic development on the continent. Partnerships and collaborations are critical and necessary in any discipline. There should be more collaboration with young people and benefiting from their creativity and resilience. Youth representation is paramount, as well as having their voice heard clearly, and this can happen when we mainstream and institutionalize youth participation and partnership in all peace and security processes on our continent. We must continue to advocate for equal participation and full involvement of women in all processes in the maintenance of and promotion of peace and security. Furthermore, we must ensure that young men are not prioritized over young women in society. Women empowerment and their financial inclusion are quite essential for the advancement of sustainable development. More participation in political, social, and economic and health situation in any country is very important. Failure to do so is demonstrated in increased gender violence, women lack of power and influence on the societies. It would therefore be amiss of us if we did not recognize and acknowledge the vital role that youth has played and continues to play. You can search for an era and you can find young people who have been very brave to fight for change. In my own country, South Africa, in 1996, June 1996, the youth took up arms and challenged the status quo. They fought bravely against an entrenched system of apartheid. Today, South Africa enjoys peace and freedom, thanks to the resilience and total commitment of young people of that great country. As a PRC, we stand firmly behind all the efforts to fully harness and strengthen the innovation of young people on the continent. And I would
was going to
like to.
I was going to say.
I am concluding, my brother.
Excellent.
I'm concluding, my brother.
Thank
I would want to just to, yes. Sorry?
You can go ahead, conclude now, conclude because of the timing and then.
Okay, that's fine then. Probably let me conclude, my dear brother, because this month is a birthday month for the former president of the Republic of South Africa, Nelson Mandela. I therefore want to leave the youth with a famous quote in one of his speeches, when he said, I quote, "We must use time wisely and forever realize that the time is always ripe to do right." As a PRC, therefore, we fully support all the activities that are outlined by the youth as they prepare to make a contribution to silencing the gun. Thank you very much, the Program Director, for this opportunity.
Thank you, Excellency, for your statements. And I must underscore that you made a very excellent point for recognition, of youth in the implementation of all the excellent policies and programs highlighted by our previous speakers. I thank you for your statement and now give the floor to our next speaker, His Excellency Ambassador Joel Nkura Bagaya, Chair of the Peace and Security Council of Burundi. Ambassador is also the Burundian ambassador to Ethiopia and African Union. Excellency, you have the floor. You have 5 minutes to deliver your statement, Excellency. Of course, you are the chair of the PSC, so we have to go to the PSC meeting. You have 5 minutes. Excellency, you have the floor.
Merci beaucoup, Excellence, pour m'accorder la parole. Comme vous le savez, nous avons une réunion qui se tient dans quelques poussières de minutes, donc je ne vais pas être assez long. Excellence, Monsieur le commissaire à la paix et à la sécurité de l'Union africaine, Excellence, Mesdames et Messieurs les commissaires de l'Union africaine et de la CEDEAO, Excellence, Monsieur le Président du Comité des représentants permanents de l'Union africaine, Excellence, Madame le représentant spécial du secrétaire général des Nations Unies, distingués invités, tout protocole observé, Mesdames et Messieurs, permettez-moi, à l'entame de mon propos, d'exprimer ma joie de pouvoir adresser ces quelques mots à notre jeunesse africaine, aux grandes filles et fils de notre cher continent qui travaillent sans relâche à la construction d'une Afrique pacifique et sécurisée. C'est cette même jeunesse à qui je m'adresse qui constitue une force de transformation immense pour notre continent, pour le faire celui dans lequel nous souhaitons vivre. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, distingués invités, de prime abord, je voudrais réaffirmer ici la volonté et le dévouement du CPS à assumer un engagement significatif aux jeunes dans la promotion de la paix et de la sécurité, ancré dans le protocole relatif à la création du Conseil. À reconnaissance des rôles et des capacités essentielles aux jeunes dans la construction de la paix et de la sécurité, le CPS a encouragé au fil des ans et stimulé l'intégration et l'inclusion des jeunes pour parvenir à faire taire les armes, et cela à travers diverses décisions. À cet égard, et de façon non exhaustive, il convient de relever, entre autres, l'adoption de la feuille de route principale sur les mesures pratiques pour faire taire les armes. Le 665e communiqué du 13 mars 2017, dans lequel nous avons encouragé la participation des jeunes à la médiation et à la prévention des conflits. Le 807e communiqué du 8 novembre 2018, dans lequel le Conseil a institutionnalisé une session annuelle ouverte sur les jeunes, la paix et la sécurité, et a demandé à la Commission de nommer 5 jeunes ambassadeurs pour la paix à raison des représentants pour chacune des 5 régions de l'Union. La finalisation du cadre continental sur la jeunesse, la paix et la sécurité, la conduite d'une étude sur les rôles et les contributions de la jeunesse à la paix et à la sécurité en Afrique, et récemment, le 933e communiqué du 23 juin 2020 qui reconnaît la jeunesse comme étant une ressource vitale pour la paix et la sécurité, un instrument pour faire taire les armes, ainsi qu'un vecteur clé pour le changement socio-économique et le développement durable. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, distingués invités, en s'attaquant aux causes sous-jacentes des conflits, la feuille de route principale et les mesures pratiques pour faire taire les armes soulignent les impératifs de la lutte contre le chômage des jeunes, notamment par la diversification économique, l'engagement des jeunes par le biais d'ateliers et de médias sociaux, la création de l'exploitation des idées de l'agenda 2063 et de l'agenda Faire taire les armes. Mais il convient, dans cette perspective, de souligner le rôle capital et fondamental de l'éducation. Une bonne éducation constitue la passerelle et l'exigence pour une jeunesse responsable, pour un engagement citoyen, participatif et créateur des jeunes. Investir dans une éducation de qualité adaptée aux exigences de développement de notre continent, notamment l'éducation des filles, ainsi que dans le leadership intergénérationnel, devrait être une priorité pour le gouvernement africain afin d'asseoir une paix et une prospérité durable. La jeunesse africaine constitue une source et la force première du continent. Nous nous devons d'exploiter au mieux l'opportunité qui représente ce dividende démographique. Pour le faire, il importerait que l'implication des jeunes à travers les ratios de participation au processus décisionnaire et non seulement consultatif, au niveau national, régionaux et continentaux, leur soit assurée. Cela engage à terme pour l'aboutissement du programme Faire taire les armes dans une Afrique paisible et sûre. Comme l'a indiqué le commissaire Cheregui, le CPS, à la suite d'une réunion technique en décembre 2019, a spécialement consacré une session le 23 juin 2020, à l'issue de laquelle ont été adoptés le cadre continental et son plan de mise en œuvre sur 10 ans. Le CPS a spécialement demandé à la Commission de fournir des rapports périodiques sur l'exécution du plan de mise en œuvre décennal et les défis, dans une minute, je conclus, et les défis rencontrés en vue de trouver des moyens créatifs pour relever les défis et assurer l'actualisation des objectifs du cadre qui, par conséquent, encouragera les efforts des jeunes pour faire taire les armes. Permettez-moi de rappeler à la décision qui tient le Conseil de rester saisi de toutes les questions relatives à la jeunesse, à la paix et à la sécurité, notamment en apportant l'appui politique et technique pertinent qui pourrait être nécessaire pour échelonner la mise en œuvre de l'agenda à travers le continent. Nous attendons également avec impatience de recevoir les rapports concis sur diverses initiatives entreprises avec des recommandations politiques et des programmes clés sur la manière dont la jeunesse peut améliorer l'agenda faire taire les armes, mais aussi sur les moyens par lesquels les parties prenantes concernées peuvent soutenir leurs efforts et par extension compléter ceux du Conseil dans la construction d'une Afrique plus pacifique, plus résiliente et plus prospère. Je vous remercie de votre aimable attention. Merci.
Thank you, Excellency, for your statements. And I must emphasize that you did emphasize the role of the PSC in promoting peace and security in the continent, as outlined in its protocols and reflected in the roadmap for silencing the guns. You also more or less convey a message that the role you played in the appointment of peace ambassadors in all the regions in Africa, and you emphasize the need to empower the youth through education and related capacity building programs in order to ensure that they participate in peace and development in the continent. I thank you for your kind statement. I now give the floor to our next speaker, Ms. Anna Tete, Special Representative of the Secretary General and Head of UN Office to the African Union. Her Excellency, you have the floor. You have 5 minutes also to deliver your statement. We cannot hear Your Excellency. I'm not sure.
Sorry, Your Excellencies, Commissioner Shaggy, Commissioner Samate, Commissioner Agbo, thank you very much for the launch of this Youth in Peace and Securities campaign, especially the Youth on Silencing the Guns. I think that this is a commendable initiative, and the United Nations is very happy to support it. Your Excellency, Ambassador Makaya, Your Excellency, Ambassador Nkrumah, thank you very much also for confirming that the PRC and the Peace and Security Council are equally in support of this initiative. Aya and Emma, I think you are wonderful young ladies, and you, together with all of the other young people in this panel today, are the future, not just the future of Africa, but also the present. And that's the reason why I'm honored to join you today for the official launch of the Youth Silencing the Guns campaign under the theme, Advancing Youth Roles and Capacities to Silence the Guns in Africa. I think that one of the mistakes that we make on this continent is we continuously think of our young people as not being able to play very constructive roles in building peace, and especially in ensuring that we create the platforms for development. I think that's the mistake that we make, and that's a mistake that we should quickly begin to dispel from the way in which we think about the participation and the capacity of our young people to be productive and proactive in helping us to craft solutions to our challenges. We have witnessed examples of young people standing up for their rights and speaking up to demand good governance. In Tunisia during the Arab Spring, in Burkina Faso in 2015, in Sudan in 2018 and 2019, just to mention a few of the instances in this continent, on this continent, where our youth have taken the lead. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we also see our youth taking the lead when it comes to speaking on issues of climate action and the need to ensure that there is sustainability and protection of environment so that we don't destroy what we have today for ourselves and also for those who will come afterwards. It's the reason why UNOAU is very willing and very happy to support this campaign. And I'd like to highlight some progress we've made so far with regard to the Youth Peace and Security agenda. Of course, I can't do this without congratulating the AU Peace and Security Council and the AU Commission for their commendable work in this area. Last month, the Council adopted the Continental Framework on Youth Peace and Security, along with the 10-year plan for its implementation. It was an important milestone as it provides normative guidance for member states, as well as regional economic communities and regional mechanisms on how to promote the meaningful participation of youth in all areas of peace, security, and development. I'm also encouraged that the Council endorsed the study report on the roles and contributions of youth to peace and security in Africa, which the AUC's Youth for Peace and Security Africa program conducted in 2019. We were able to support this with the financial assistance of Norway. And I'd want to commend the Commission, the involved partners and external consultants and youth representatives for their efforts in realizing this milestone study. The Youth, Peace and Security Agenda is also a priority for the United Nations, and there have been important developments in recent years. The Security Council has recognized the role of youth under resolutions 2250, 2419, and only 10 days ago, 2535. And therefore, we believe that we are all working up today to the need to include our young people in government by showing them the right examples, but giving them the opportunity to participate. The UN has also developed a system-wide strategy, Youth 2030, which provides an ambitious framework to step up our efforts towards meeting young people's needs, realizing their rights, and creating opportunities for them to act as agents of change. Clearly, the realization of the Youth, Peace and Security Agenda is a joint goal of our two organizations and provides a unique opportunity to enhance the UN-AU partnership in peace and security, including in the context of the UN's continuous support to the Silencing the Guns initiative. I would like to end, Your Excellencies, by emphasizing the need to create the space for our young people, but especially our young women, to have a seat at the table, to participate in governance, to be part of peace-building initiatives. I remember 20 years ago, when I was a young parliamentary candidate, campaigning to be elected at the age of 33. My opponent was twice my age, and he called me a small girl. Never mind, my people didn't think I was a small girl. But that has made me very much aware of the challenges that young people face when they strive to sit at the table. We have to create the space for them all the time, because it is the only way that we'll be able to use their talent, their skill, their learning, and their enthusiasm to create the Africa we want. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency, for your statement. And I must, if I attempt to briefly say one or two words on it, emphasize the need not to underestimate the importance of youth in peace, security, and development. And of course, the role they also play in climate change. And therefore, this will help, in fact, to enhance the relationship or the partnership between the AU and the UN. And you support this initiative. I thank you very much for your kind statement. I now give the floor to our youth envoy, Excellency Ms. Aya Chebi. You have the floor. You have 4 minutes to deliver your statement. Our envoy.
Thank you, Ambassador. Good afternoon, and all protocols are duly observed. I want to, first of all, thank Commissioner of Peace and Security, His Excellency Ambassador Ismail Shergi, for his leadership and commitment to youth engagement, and for launching the Youth Silencing the Guns campaign today, and also for his openness to the idea of a targeted campaign for youth within 22 theme of the year, within the circumstances of COVID-19 outbreak. We do hope this will set a precedent for subsequent themes of the African Union to value having a campaign, particularly to engage youth, so they can own our AU themes and champion them at the national and community level. Because that's what young people continue to ask us all the time, to bring the African Union decisions to the grassroots so we can see results and impact. We would have hoped that we could run the campaign on the ground as initially planned, with solidarity visits to member states and direct engagement in town halls with young people. However, we have to adjust due to the pandemic, but we will have the opportunity to innovate, to go digital with the campaign, while also supporting youth engagement in the national plans on silencing the guns. I would like to also sincerely thank Dr. Kambuzi, the Director of Peace and Security Department, Ambassador Kamara, the Bureau of the Chairperson, especially Madame Oryatu, as well as colleagues at the Youth for Peace team, the AGA Secretariat, the Youth Division, with whom we've been working on this campaign, and we will continue to work together to achieve the expected ambitious outcome of this campaign. I think by launching the campaign, our leaders who have made powerful statements today, Commissioner of Peace and Security, Commissioner of Human Resources, Science and Technology, Commissioner of Political Affairs, the Chair of PRC, the Chair of PSC, and the UN through the presence of Special Representative of SG, all really shows important recognition for the urgent need to center youth in the theme of the year and on the peace, security, and development agenda in general. we have the youngest population in the world. Youth are the ones affected by conflict, especially young women. Youth are the ones vulnerable to recruitment and marginalization. And they are the ones building peace and agencies. So we know that the more we engage young people, the more sustainable our peace will be. And it's important to realize that young people are extremely interconnected today. What takes place in one country has an effect on a young person in another country. Young peace builders in Africa care about each other. We see more and more solidarity among youth across borders, but also young people look at their challenges as intersectional and interlinked. This presents for us an opportunity to engage a large youth constituency on silencing the guns agenda, from climate activists to gender advocates, to anti-corruption initiatives, to even potential entrepreneurs, because silencing the guns is also silencing corruption and silencing climate crisis and youth unemployment and gender-based violence. And as Commissioner of HRC said, Commissioner Sarah, silencing hunger and poverty, and the list goes on. So young people care about all these issues, and everyone can and should relate to silencing the guns agenda, because if we include the aspects of empowerment, transformation, prevention, and how we address the root causes of human suffering, then they can relate to it. We believe at the African Union that dialogue is the tool to reach common solutions. And in this regard, as the chairperson, Special Envoy on Youth, my office advocates for intergenerational dialogues, because I truly believe that could also be a tool for conflict prevention by stimulating solidarity, trust, and mentorship and learning across generations. And one of the objectives of the Youth Silencing the Guns campaign is to foster intergenerational co-leadership. So as part of this campaign, we developed and we will publish today a toolkit on intergenerational dialogue. So young people can organize dialogues in their communities and schools and organizations, and together we can nurture a culture of dialogue for next generations. We also have a lineup of exciting activities that we want to announce today. We will convene regional intergenerational dialogues. We will mobilize grants and seed funding for youth-led peace organization through Youth Silencing the Guns Awards. And we will run trainings because young people asked us for skills in mediation and community engagement. Some of the ongoing activities right now are the Youth Innovation Challenge run by AGA Secretariat as by Commissioner, and the deadline is extended to 11 August. So make sure you share with young innovators and follow our social media to know more. My final address is a call for my fellow young peace builders. There is no better time than now to mobilize for peace. This comes timely following the adoption of a milestone by Peace and Security Council of the African Union Continental Framework on Youth, Peace and Security. I call on all young people in Africa to join us, to rally our peers, to mobilize, to change the narrative from youth as a problem and perpetrators of violence to youth as a solution and as peace builders. Tell us, how are you silencing the guns? Let us make young African peace builders the news and the headlines, not the violent extremists. Join us to recruit more youth into peace building. Show our peers the value of peace building, that you don't need martyrdom to be recognized and to be a hero. You can be a hero and recognized as an agent of peace. And I think the African Youth Ambassadors of Peace are a group that is leading by example, and it's an example of that. In fact, I think it should be our generation mission to silence the guns, because African youth deserve peace. Our generation deserves peace, and the next generations deserve peace. And we have so many superpowers. We have the demographic power, the innovation power, the voting power, the digital power. We have the youth-led accountability power, and we have the power to delegitimize violence and legitimize peace. So all we need to do is to unite and rise above national, racial, ethnic, tribal, religious, and other differences, and be first and foremost human and African. So my call to you as we launch this campaign is to unite for one Pan-African vision, an integrated, peaceful, and borderless Africa. And let's be reminded that we don't need permission to serve our continent. In fact, it is our duty and our responsibility to do that. So let us all be the youth silencing the guns. Thank you, Ambassador.
Thank you for your brief statement. If I may attempt to summarize it, you underscored the interconnectivity of youth across the continent and the need to bring them on board. They are more positioned to bring African Union decisions to various communities in the continent. You outlined the programs that we intend to embark upon, and you call upon your colleagues to join the campaign on silencing the guns on the continent. I thank you for your statement. I now give the floor to our youth ambassador, Ms. Emma Nganga, African Youth Ambassador for East Africa. You have the floor. You have 4 minutes, as we are more or less late for time now for the PSPS meeting. You have the floor.
Thank you, Ambassador Kamara, Your Excellencies, distinguished commissioners and ambassadors, directors, my fellow youth, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of young peace builders across the continent, I wish to thank the leadership of the African Union for this great initiative that seeks to not only mobilize youth, but also mainstream youth when it comes to the element of silencing the gun agenda. In this regard, as a youth representative, it is my hope that today's session will feed into the current existing efforts when it comes to addressing the challenges of youth across the continent, and especially now in the face of the current pandemic of COVID-19. Youth responses to COVID-19 have clearly illustrated our resilience and key innovative roles when it comes to prevention, response, and containment of the pandemic. And in this regard, I wish to also recognize and appreciate all the youth and health workers who have been at the forefront of fighting the pandemic, and also leadership among our member states who, despite their various challenges, have committed to counter the effects of the pandemic on the population. As youth and women, we are devastated by the impact of violent conflicts and the exposure of young women and men to violent extremism, exposure to sexual and gender-based violence, and dire humanitarian conditions, among others. Thus, the silencing the guns agenda is not only timely, but commendable as a major prerequisite when it comes to the agenda of peace and development. And this agenda requires our commitment as a continent, our commitment as youth, and this coupled with collaborative efforts, of course, from various key actors. Of course, this will be very important in the achievement of a peaceful and prosperous Africa as per Agenda 2063. When it comes to the element of youth responsibility, the narrative of youth being given voices is not right, because we as youth already have voices. The only thing that we need is right policies and the platforms to engage. We need to empower our youth when it comes to using their voices. And considering our large demographic element in relation to the continent, our voices are our weapons and not arms, not extremism, not crimes. Thus, as youth, we have the right to speak up and the right also to be heard as youth. We have the right to speak up and take concerted actions against elements of corruption, speak up on elements of unemployment, speak up on systematic marginalization, speak up on gender inequalities, speak up on the commercialization of conflict. The list is endless. And as youth, we also need to take responsibility, especially when it comes to a shift of mindset of our capacity and our capabilities when it comes to the peace and development agenda. And lastly, as youth, it's very important that we move together as one voice and refrain from retrogressive divisions along ethnic, along tribal, along religious lines, which, as is evident, have continued to divide us as a continent. As I wind up, leadership and governance remains a key challenge, which as a continent we need to address. And we need our leaders to walk the talk when it comes to relieving the current burden of conflicts to the next generation. Leaders need to undertake concrete actions when it comes to addressing the structural causes of violence. And also as leaders, we need, they need to provide us with safe spaces as youth when it comes to engagement, when it comes to participation in the areas of governance and peace and security. As I conclude, I wish to, as a continent and as youth, we really need to reflect back to the colonial times, where our agenda as Africans was one. Our agenda was freedom and independence. And this was achieved through unity. And without the unity that our grandfathers had, they would not have achieved the freedom that we have today. And that is the same case when it comes to silencing the guns. We need to come together as one. We need to move together as one and speak the same agenda, silencing the guns. On behalf of the African Youth Ambassadors for Peace and the youth in the region, we do commit to furthering the agenda of silencing the guns. And I do believe that it only requires commitment. That is all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ambassador, for the brief statement. If I may attempt to summarize your key points, you emphasize the resilience of youth in playing an immense role in peace and security on the continent, irrespective of the prevailing COVID-19 pandemic. You advocate for a platform for youth to be given to youth in order for them to speak up on various vices and disparities which are derailing the socio-economic development of the continent. I thank you for your statement, and I will now use this opportunity to thank all our panelists, from the commissioners to our ambassadors and our representative, the UN Special Representative and our envoy, as well as our ambassadors. Your statements are well delivered, very excellent, and are precise. I'm sure we'll have a very good report out of it. Because of the time constraint we have, I will only attempt to thank you all for your excellent statement, and we look forward to the outcome of this campaign, and then we will prepare a report and share it with all the panelists. I thank you once more for your excellent statement. The program now comes to an end. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Okpana, too.